All of a sudden, they were everywhere. Kids taking to the streets, demanding politicians to save the planet and their future. An international agreement struck in Paris in 2015 was to be the decisive step, but it seems like people are polluting more, not less. The topic is urgent and has entered campaigns for the EU elections. In some areas, Europe is trying to be a frontrunner. It's banning single-use plastic. But what good is that when you look at pictures like these? I see the passion and the will to change the way we handle pollution and climate change everywhere in Europe. But is it enough?
Scientists have calculated a point of no return for climate change. It's 2035. After that, the goal of limiting global warming to under 2 degrees becomes unreachable if things don't change quickly.
So I ask myself, can Europe save the planet? In late winter, I looked out of my office window in Brussels and saw this. 15,000 students skipping school and making a lot of noise for the climate. The next week, I made sure to be down on the streets with them. Their message was clear.
On va vers le négatif avec l'Europe pour l'instant. Leurs décisions sont mauvaises pour la planète. La planète va être détruite à cause d'eux. Et nous, on est là pour ça. On veut protéger la planète tous ensemble.
We are very frustrated and something needs to change.
The leaders of Europe have always seen themselves as global frontrunners when it comes to fighting climate change.
Und der nächste Schritt ist jetzt, diese Strategie auch mit konkreten Maßnahmen auszufüllen.
Cette jeunesse partout dans le monde, elle a raison de nous dire cela. Elle a raison de s'impatienter, parce que nous n'avons que trop tardé.
Europe wants to slash its carbon emissions by 40% in the next 11 years. But right now it looks like no European country will meet this goal.
These students here have a pretty clear opinion on that.
And one of them is Pauline Samika. The 16-year-old should be in school at this time of day, just like most of the others.
Tu vas pas à l'école aujourd'hui et c'est pas un problème pour tes parents?
Non, non, ils sont d'accord, ils sont avec ça. Le climat est une cause honorable, donc je suis d'accord. Mes parents, l'école est d'accord, donc on est là. Donc.
Et quand est-ce que tu savais qu'il fallait venir, que c'était super important?
À l'école, on a eu beaucoup de conférences, on nous a parlé du climat. À la télé, depuis des années, on voit des catastrophes. Donc je pense qu'il est temps qu'on fasse quelque chose, qu'on vienne à l'école, qu'on sorte de l'école et qu'on dise à tout le monde, au gouvernement, qu'on peut faire changer les choses.
Protests like these are taking place all over the world, so the awareness among younger people is there. And politicians also seem devoted to doing something. But here's what's really happening. The Polish government wants to keep logging one of the last remaining primeval forests in Europe. At the same time, every summer, huge fires like this one in Portugal are setting parts of Europe ablaze. Some say they're fueled by climate change. Many countries, like Germany, still depend on coal plants for electricity. All of that is bad news for the melting polar ice caps and global warming in general. But how bad, really? There are a lot of opinions out there, especially on global warming. It's time to talk to someone who deals in facts, even if it means I need to go back to school. University, to be precise.
Ah. Oh, it's nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hi. All right, so you can show me a couple of things?
Yes.
Katja Biedenkopf is a professor at the University of Leuven, close to Brussels, and an expert on climate policy. She's also very familiar with Europe's goal to slash carbon emissions by 40%.
Europe always pretends to be the front runner, but are they really?
Europe has done a lot and has been a leader in the past and still is comparatively ambitious, but it still has to do a lot and improve its efforts. Certainly in areas such as transportation. If we think about the emissions from cars, from lorries and a number of other sources, there we're still increasing our emissions. And that is an area that has been very difficult to tackle. We all remember Dieselgate and many of the scandals. So that is an area where many policymakers have done a lot but still need to do much more.
So do you feel like this is a hopeless case?
I'm not that pessimistic. There are many signs that could turn people pessimistic, but if we give up hope, then I guess we're doomed. There's a lot of opportunity for generating not only effects that are good for the climate and the environment, but also good for jobs, for our economy, for our exports and those aspects. So I think that's one area where we have big chances or where we have big opportunities. But it's difficult because we need to change current mindsets, current structures.
And do you feel like that message is being heard by the right people?
Well, the pupils on the street. So really now the next generation asking for it and asking their parents to not leave a world that's not livable anymore. I think that's the most hopeful sign that we have at the moment.
Okay, so you don't think 40% is too ambitious?
No, I think we need to be more ambitious. No.
Oof. To be honest, I thought I'd be a lot more depressed after this chat with Katja Biedenkopf.
Usually when you talk to people who know a lot of things about climate change, pollution, and generally speaking, the state of the planet, they tend to be rather pessimistic. Now, this was different. Katja Biedenkopf seemed rather optimistic, especially regarding the role of Europe. So this is definitely something that the kids demonstrating in Belgium would have liked to hear.
Yes, enthusiasm is in large supply at the climate protests. But do the young people actually have a plan other than taking to the streets?
Nous avons beaucoup de projets à l'école, par exemple, on a fait beaucoup de choses, par exemple zéro déchet, par exemple, on n'utilise que des gourdes, etc. Donc on veut surtout changer, déjà commencer par des petites choses pour pouvoir faire de choses plus grandes. Et donc on attend que le gouvernement fasse aussi ses efforts à lui, parce que bon, une seule petite goutte d'eau, ça ne fera rien, mais si le gouvernement en fait, alors beaucoup de monde seront obligés aussi à suivre tout ce qu'il demande. Donc voilà.
Et vous essayez de vous faire entendre aussi par l'Union européenne?
Et évidemment, on veut être entendu du monde entier. Comme ça, plus de monde nous entendra, plus il y aura d'impact et plus les choses vont changer.
The students are competing with powerful lobbies that have no interest in tightening CO2 rules. But the figurehead of the movement, Greta Thunberg, has managed to put climate change on the agenda just in time for the European elections.
Thank you.
At the EU Parliament, she brought her cause to the politicians directly.
I expect them to take action now because there's not much time. We still have an open window that is not going to be open for long in which we can act. So we need to take that opportunity to do something, and they should really do something.
So, what are the European politicians that are supposed to really do something prepared to actually do? I asked some of them whether they are hearing the movement's demands.
Of course I am. I'm very proud of that generation. I think they are doing something important, and I think they are strong, and they demand something from politics, and I'm ready to tackle that responsibility. And I want my colleagues here to listen too.
Yes, definitely. And I think it's very important that young people engage, and it's a real important subject. And I very much like this movement.
What exactly are you ready to do?
One of my strong demands on this House is that we should respect the Paris Agreement.
For me, it was very important that in the plenary in March, we adopted a resolution where we support the target of net climate neutrality.
We need to have at least 55% reduction on CO2 until 2030.
In 2050, the European Union should not emit more than, for example, our forests absorb or modern technology could take out of the atmosphere.
We need to act every day to improve climate politics in the EU, and that is my role, to make sure that the kids who demands more will feel that that is implemented.
It may be not enough what we are doing, but without Europe we would be hopeless, and that's why we shouldn't criticize the European Union for not doing anything. We should motivate Europe to do more.
Much more, say the climate activists. But is the noise they make going to be enough to compete with lobbyists that try to influence politicians across Europe? I want to be as enthusiastic as these kids and believe that humanity can still turn things around. But maybe I'm a little too old for that, because from experience I know that if humans find a way to enrich themselves, they will do it. No matter the cost to others or the planet.
So it's pretty clear that kids here are fed up and want to take matters into their own hands. But there are some good examples what can be done to save the planet.
And one of those good examples takes us here. Recognize it? Beautiful coastlines. Nice pubs. Friendly people. A charming capital. And mountains of plastic.
Yes, the European Union has taken up the fight against plastic waste. And that brings us to this place. It's in Ireland, actually in Dublin. And according to some statistics, the Irish produce the most plastic waste per capita.
In the European Union, that is, of course. And see these little plastic items? Straws, cigarette butts, throwaway plates and cups. In short, single-use plastic is supposed to disappear from Europe by 2021. The European Parliament approved the ban in March 2019. It's one of the first pieces of legislation worldwide trying to get rid of throwaway plastic. Which brings us back to Ireland. I want to find out whether this kind of law is really enough to make an impact. But plastic is a complex matter, as I'm soon to find out.
So we now have to get our mixed paper into European paper mills.
Liam Dunn knows a thing or two about plastic. He runs this recycling facility on the outskirts of Dublin. And when he gets started on the different kinds of plastic, you need to hold on tight.
Many countries have a bottle return scheme. For these bottles, we don't. Our customers put them in the household green bin and we use an optical separator to recover them. So clear, green, blue, Coke, Volvic, 7-Up, all the mineral drinks are all mixed together. We make one single grade of PET. And then the last optical separator recovers all other types of plastic. So your polystyrene, your low-grade mushroom trays, those blue trays, food trays, the microwavable dinners, your coffee cup lids, polystyrene.
Okay, I get it. The plastic business is very complicated. In fact, it really is a pretty big business.
That's a lot of plastic.
And this plastic is worth a lot of money.
So this is the stuff that you can sell for the highest price?
Yes, this is our HDPE natural. It's 2% of the content of the household recycling bin. And yes, at today's prices, that's March 2019, it's worth about 300 to 350 euros a tonne. What's much more difficult to recycle are the crinkly type plastics and foil plastics.
From your perspective, who knows so much about plastic, and quite honestly, I have trouble following sometimes, but what needs to happen to get this problem under control?
I think the number of types of plastic needs to be reduced, the number of composite packages. So even, for example, having a plastic package that has a big paper label on it, that makes it far, far more difficult to recycle. So maybe through legislation or through collaborating between the product producers and the packaging manufacturers and the retailers that maybe we could single stream our plastic. So if you only had PET or only had LDPE,
those that are easily recyclable.
Easily recyclable, and also indicate whether or not they can or can't be recycled on the labelling. Make the labelling much more clearer for the householder, because people genuinely do have an issue, particularly with the soft plastics.
But it appears that some people don't have an issue with throwing those plastics anywhere except the trash. Dublin isn't an exceptionally dirty city, but given that according to some studies, the amount of plastic waste per capita is higher here than anywhere else in the EU, some of it ends up in the parks and waterways of the Irish capital. The situation has gotten worse ever since China stopped buying the world's plastic waste at the beginning of 2018. Like others, Ireland is now stuck with its own discarded plastics.
Some folks around here are trying to do something about it. They are literally taking the litter or matters into their own hands.
Enter Linda Leonard. As often as she can, she roams the streets of Dublin. Her normal job is working for a travel company. That company wants to make sure the city is as clean as possible and also earn certain eco-certifications along the way. So they organize so-called litter picks with the green team of the company. The hardest part are the plastic-filled cigarette butts.
They're very frustrating, yeah.
Because they're so small?
Yeah, and as well, like you don't feel you've made as big an impact when your bag is not going to be very full, but it's going to take more time to fill the bag to pick up these little cigarette butts. And because I don't smoke and they're carcinogenic and they're bad for people, I can't see any advantage with a cigarette.
Cigarette butts are also part of the new EU legislation. One filter takes up to 12 years to disintegrate. So the EU wants to hold tobacco companies accountable for the cleanup of the stubs. For the litter pickers, that's good news.
Power! People power!
But it's not enough.
So not just the cigarette companies, the beer companies, all the companies that are producing this waste. I think you can change people's behaviour with taxation and make it more into the consciousness as well, because Ireland is known for its greenness, and if you just continue to just import trash into it, it's not going to stay nice and green and be a place where we want to live or to welcome our tourists here.
After 1 hour, the group has made quite a haul. So I know Linda Leonard and her colleagues are making an impact, albeit small. If everybody did that, the world would be a different place. But the truth is, very few people engage in such a way. I'm not doing it either. Do the activists really think things can still be turned around in Europe?
So we have European elections coming up in May. What would you expect the new European Parliament to do?
Ban single-use plastic and enact a bill for a deposit refund scheme for plastic bottles.
Okay, and if you had your wildest dreams come true, what should they do?
Tax the companies that are causing the waste and make it that they're aware of their impact on the environment.
And do you ever lose hope? You know, you go there day after day, you collect the litter, the rubbish, and it seems to never get less.
Well, if more people become conscious, it will become less. And if the policy is enacted as promised, and it's a pity it's not sooner, that's all.
But do you think the people's minds are changing too, or just legislation?
Absolutely. Well, once we become more visible, so yes, definitely there's a shift in mindset.
And you can tell around you that this is happening?
Absolutely. If you look at my colleagues here and all the work we've put in today, you can see it's a visible positive action.
I guess you need to be an optimist when you're in the business of saving the planet. That's increasingly difficult when it comes to the seas. Ireland has thousands of kilometers worth of coastline. So the country isn't just dealing with its own plastic, the stuff washes up from all across the globe.
Even if you can't see it,
Plastic is everywhere, especially microplastic. It's even been found in human, well, poop. Not good. There's so much of it in the oceans that one report estimates there will be more plastic than fish in the oceans by 2050, including those tiny particles called microplastic. Already plastic is entering the food chain. Marine animals eat it. This whale had more than 40 kilograms of plastic in its stomach. The problem, of course, is not just with huge whales. It affects fish living in the Irish Sea as well, but these are in an aquarium right next to the beach in the town of Bray.
All native species. So we have rays, we have small sharks, we have flatfish, plaice, we have these mullet, and we are suffering slow decline in numbers of rays. And when you look at these bottom-dwelling creatures and you see how they naturally feed, it doesn't take a genius to work out how much of these broken down plastics they're actually ingesting. Consider rays and sharks. They have been around for millions of years. They actually predate dinosaurs, and rays themselves have been around for 170 million years. So they are the earth survivors, and they have survived everything that we've managed to throw at them over the centuries. And yet, this product, plastic, is starting to have an impact and is starting to undermine their survivor abilities.
How does that make you feel? I mean, if you think about that.
To be honest with you, I try and stay focused on the positive and the things that we can do in order to make a better environment. Because to dwell on what's going wrong it's very depressing, to be honest with you.
Yep, older guys like us tend to be pessimistic. But it's no use being all spineless about it. The threat is real and can be found right next to the aquarium. A seemingly spotless beach on the surface. But underneath the rocks, it's a different story. Small pieces of plastic. Okay, it's nothing like some beaches in Asia. China produces roughly a third of the world's mismanaged plastic waste. But oceans have no borders. So what good is a law against single-use plastics in Europe if plastic from all over the world can wash up here?
It all helps, and you have to start somewhere, and to address the issue on our own front step is the first step. Then it is a question of applying pressure through whatever political, diplomatic channels are necessary to influence the change in Asia.
Are you hopeful for that?
Long term, it's difficult to say. It will happen, but whether it happens before that critical point of no return, that's what's uncertain.
So you don't think we're there yet at that point?
No, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're very close, but I don't think we're there yet.
At the point of no return?
I don't think we're at a point of no return.
Okay.
I think there is still hope. I think humanity still has the ability to pull itself out of this awful mess that we've blindfolded, kind of blindly walked ourselves into.
There are signs everywhere in Europe that people are trying to do just that. From climate change to the avalanche of plastic on land and in the seas, it seems that Europeans are much more aware of what they're doing to their home than in the past. But is it going to be too little, too late?
And the consensus I found is that the European Union is moving in the right direction, for example, with the new legislation on the ban of single-use plastic, but that it's not nearly enough. So the next European Parliament will have to do more, much more, if it wants to contribute to saving this planet.